All right, folks, this is your weekly video for the week of December 7th. This week we'll be starting on problems, the human rights issues that we've been talking about for most of the year. And this week we'll be starting with education. Um, as we've addressed in class and mentioned in last week's webinar, the format for the remainder of the year will follow each of the 5 problems with 2 weeks dedicated to each problem. The first week will be an introduction to the issues with that problem. We'll have readings that introduce the material from High Noon and as well as others. And then the webinars will be based around talking about those issues and helping you understand why these are human rights issues. The second week will be about what can be done to solve these problems. Specifically, we'll be looking at organizations that will be working through the ICL. And these organizations are all over the world. For peace, we're looking at a school in Saudi Arabia. For poverty, we're looking for an organization in India. With education, we're working with Wiser in Kenya. The environment, we're looking at working with the Dwight International School in Canada, and then human public health, we're working with a school in Peru. And these schools and organizations will be sort of the cornerstone of helping us understand what is being done to touch on these issues. We'll look at what they're doing as well as what other organizations, companies, people, individuals are doing to help address these. Once we hit all 5 issues, we will then focus specifically on the task that you have chosen. Each one of you has indicated in the survey which topics you're most interested in. You indicated your top 3. Hopefully you'll get your top choice. If you don't, you'll get your second choice. And then for the remainder of the year, you'll be working with a group of people who selected that topic to come up with some sort of project that will be connected to that organization that we were looking at earlier in the year. So starting about March 1st, that will be your primary focus. Up until March 1st, we'll be looking at the 5 problems, and there will be a couple times when you'll connect with your group to start to organize, and then start to figure out what role everyone's going to play from March 1st on. And then, like I said, March 1st will then be the start of the project piece, where we will begin to really focus in on putting this project into play. But getting back to this week, our focus is on education, specifically why do we have to improve global education? And the reason we have to improve global education is indicated through our readings, and we'll be discussing this in more detail on Wednesday, but I wanted to give you a sort of sense of the idea behind education and why it's an important issue, and then sort of take it from there. I feel like, and others may have different opinions, but education is a cornerstone of all human rights, because when you have equal opportunity, equal education, there's not a barrier or limit to what someone can or cannot do when there is an issue regarding educational access or educational opportunities, issues with literacy. A person's ability to rise up and make something of themselves is limited. So the idea behind what a lot of organizations are doing now, they're really trying to provide equal access to materials, to organizations, to people in areas that are not able to, who have not had access in the past. With the advent of the internet, and specifically in the last few years, open source materials allowing the internet to broadcast free information, and specifically free quality information from academic institutions like MIT, Stanford, Yale. The ability to provide this equalizing educational content is now there. It's now a matter of making sure we find ways to connect that technology to the right people in those poor locations, or even maybe in a rich country, but in locations that don't have access. Because there are plenty of cities, even in the United States, that there's a big disparity between the level of access, internet access, of those who have it and those who don't. And so it's important, as we think about this issue this week, why we need to improve global education. It really comes back down to that leveling aspect. When we can allow students of any nation the same access to quality education, we're going to be promoting not only equal rights, but a better understanding of why people need to be treated fairly, be treated equally, because a lot of hate and discrimination comes out of a lack of understanding, a lack of education. And if we are able to make education an emphasis and really push equal rights for education across all countries, it's going to benefit all aspects, all human rights. And so I think, like I said earlier, it's really a cornerstone. So as you do the readings this week, I want you to think about those two things. Why we need to have education be a focus, and why and how technology can help us in that regard. So to do the readings, if you want, watch the resource, a video on education and creativity, and then begin to collect the information in your Google Reader. Check Twitter, begin to use your personal learning network to find this information. As we move forward, and specifically this week, use these pieces, the Google Reader, Twitter, Facebook, if you're inclined, to begin to share information if you found it, by posting on Facebook if that's what you're likely to do, or if you're on Twitter, share a link or try to find links from people you're following. And then the Google Reader, follow the blogs that are talking about these educational issues, and specifically global education. And then on Wednesday, we'll have this discussion centered around why there should be global education should be a focus. And then we'll talk about the technology piece as well in regards to global education. And then on Sunday, or Monday morning, you'll have your assignment due, which is going to be a blog post. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me or Mr. Kalani, and we'll see you on Wednesday at 8 p.m. in the webinar.